think we're just waiting for folks to connect their audio. I see lots of people still connecting. Just give it a minute. Okay, are we about there now, Wendy? Is it good to go? Excellent. Yeah, no?
I'll trickle in.
Trickle in. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sue Human, ABC MC, who is the incoming board chair for the Canada West region. Lots of thanks and kudos to Will for leading us this past year and a half. Long story. But it's my extreme pleasure to introduce to you Danielle Bond, SCMP, who is the incoming International Executive Board Chair, and Peter Finn, who's the Executive Director of IABC. Danielle is coming to us from sunny Australia. We're at 7:30 in the morning, folks. So a little sympathy for early Saturday morning there. And so thank you so much for being with us, Danielle, at this very early time. She is the Chief Managing Officer at Oricon, a global engineering leading brand. She leads brand, marketing, and communication strategy. Danielle is passionate about people, innovation, and workplaces of the future. She also has a communication background in financial services at Ernst & Young and several law firms in Australia. So law, finance, and engineering, you've hit the big three, Danielle. Good on you. Yeah. And Peter Finn is headquartered, of course, at IABC's location in Chicago, leading the charge as the executive director for IABC from there. Peter has well experienced in managing and leading a number of projects and programs from a diverse set of organizations, including nonprofits, associations, educational institutions, government agencies, and corporations. He was recently the chair of the International Association of Communication, Education, and Training Board of Directors. And so Peter comes to us as well. Thanks for joining us this evening, Peter. And I'm just going to turn it over to you folks. I know the membership is dying to hear from you. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I am going to share my screen here. All right. So again, I'm Peter Finn. I'm the executive director at IABC. I've been the executive director since October. So it's a real pleasure to be able to meet everyone virtually. Hopefully at some point soon, we'll be able to meet in person. But for now, thank you very much. And we are going to go through our Stronger Together, our strategic plan. But I don't know if Danielle, did you have any opening remarks or things you wanted to say before we got started?
So look, just to say thank you very much for having me, and it's a real pleasure to join you. The last time that I was in Canada was at the Vancouver World Conference, which was magnificent. And I know I may well have met some of you then, and I might have seen some of you last year in Austin, Texas, but it is delightful to join you, even if it's virtually, and perhaps one day soon we might get to shake hands, break bread together, and have a fine Canadian beer. Over to you, Peter.
All right. And so Danielle and I will kind of be switching on and off throughout the presentation. We have divvied up some of this. So today we're going to go over the objectives of what we're going to be presenting on. And talk a little bit about the review of the research and the thinking behind the strategic plan. And there were a few things that the task force has worked on, the strategic planning task force, that we want to go over, talk about the plan itself. And of course, we want to hear from you. You probably see this is on Mentimeter. So at the end, we do have a few Mentimeter questions, but also just, I think we have a kind of a small enough group here. So if you really want us to address something right away, raise your hand and we'll do that as we're presenting. If not, we'll certainly take the questions that come through the moderated, through the chat, and we can address those at the end. So I think we'll have a good amount of time to get through some questions. So the objectives here are really to identify the key elements of the thinking that went into this and led to the formation of the plan. Danielle will talk a little bit about the timeline of this plan, because it has been kind of start and stop over the last 2 years, but a lot of work has gone on in earnest over the last 6 months. Examine the current and future needs of the profession relative to the new strategic plan. Evaluate the components of the plan and impact on the next 4 years of IABC. So the plan is Stronger Together IABC 2025. And then most importantly, defining how volunteer leaders and members can be part of this ambitious 4-year plan. So we're only as successful as the engagement that we have with all of you. So we can't make this plan work unless we have everybody on board. And there's something about a co-creation process that goes on where not only with the IAB and the core, but chapter leaders and all the way down to our members, there are things in here that we're all working towards. And ultimately, we're also supporting our members as much as possible and adding value along the way. So with that, I'll hand it off to Danielle to talk a little bit about the task force, and I think she's going to talk a little bit about just some of the background.
Thank you, Peter. So that's the gang of 6 that worked on this this plan together. So Bonnie Caver, who is of course our current chair of the IAB, Katie McCauley from London, who runs a very successful internal communications consulting business, Matt Tidwell, who is a professor of marketing at Kansas University, longtime member of the association, Zora Artis, who's a fellow Melburnian here in Australia, who's been a member of the IEB, led Asia Pacific region, and is a thought leader in her own business. And then Derek Rosdeba, who is the Vice President Communications at Bayer Canada. So we've spent, if we go to the next slide, we've been a working group, as Peter mentioned, for in earnest in the last 6 to 12 months. But this process did kick off in July 2019 with Bonnie conducting a number of listening tours around our world when we were able to travel, and she spent some time in Africa meeting with our members and volunteer leaders in Africa. And then at LI in 2020, we tested, gosh, it's hard to believe that that was actually last year. We tested some of this thinking. We ran a planning workshop with 100 of our volunteer leaders in Austin, Texas. And then in September, we did some further engagement, which culminated in February this year. We shared some of this with our virtual leadership institute, where we had 200 volunteer leaders registered, which is one of the benefits of virtual. You can actually get leaders from around the world who may not otherwise have been able to get on a plane, but they were able to join us virtually. And we had we broke out into focus groups and discussed various aspects of the plan, and we used Menti and voted on some of the elements that you'll see in a little while. Then the task force, we've been working again, finalising, socialising. We shared it with the Council of Regions. Sue and Will were both at that session, as were our other region leaders, current region chairs and incoming, where we nutted out some of the other elements. Peter and his team are now converting this into a year 1 action plan. We've presented it to the board for approval. In May, we got feedback. This month we'll get final. We will be sharing with all of our members a high-level summary in the annual general meeting annual report, and there'll be Bonnie and I will share some of this. And then come July, there will be a more concerted effort to roll out. So I'm delighted to say Canada West is getting the early sneak peek of this work. So being one of our strongest regions, it's absolutely appropriate we start with you. So next slide, please, Peter. I just wanted to call out some of the research and thinking that has gone into this work. I spoke about the listening session. So obviously we're connected to our members and our volunteer leaders, and we are constantly seeking to understand what's happening in our world and responding to it through the professional development programs that you all run in chapters and regions, to the other virtual events that we've been running, all the thought leadership that our people are great at developing and sharing. That's informed it. But there's another piece of work that we did around megatrends. So because we're the International Association of Business Communications, we wanted to understand what are the macro trends that are impacting our world and business, and what does that mean for the communications profession, and what does that mean for us as their professional association? I'll share some of those insights with you shortly. We also commissioned, well, we did it ourselves. So we commissioned ourselves to do a piece of research. Derek Rosdeba led that for us, and you'll see some of those findings. Peter will share those with you. But we had just under 200 communication professionals around the world share their perspectives on where our profession is going. That's some very useful insights. We undertook some blue ocean thinking, which again I'll share with you, which is quite a it's really quite an impactful way of thinking about how we compete. We did a value chain analysis. I'm not going to go into detail with that, but it was just a really good framework where we thought about who our stakeholders are and how we deliver value to them. So we will share the outcomes of that in the plan. And then Matt Tidwell and I did some work on persona development, which is still underway, but we hope, and I'll share some of the detail with you, we hope this is going to be particularly useful for our volunteer leaders when we're thinking about our audiences and what's attractive to our audiences, the marketing message, the experience we want to create. Thank you, Peter. So let's go to megatrends. Now, I apologise, that is really small. The good news is we will be producing a piece of thought leadership that will be a companion piece to this strategy. So you'll get more of the meat that sits underneath this busy slide. But let me talk you through the high points. Population growth and demographic change. I think we're all familiar, right? By 2050, we could be close to 10 billion people on this planet. That brings with it lots of implications for the planet and our people. But one of the things it brings in terms of our profession and our audience as the IABC is that we do have an ageing population, particularly in North America and Europe. By 2031, the youngest baby boomer will be 65. Now, just for those of you who, like me, fall into that category, just take a deep breath. That's a bit scary. You're not really a baby boomer anymore, but that's a shift, right? And we're all familiar with that shift. What does that mean for us? Well, I think it's an exciting opportunity. You know, there's opportunities for growth in different markets around the world. There's also all of these emerging professionals, Gen Z, millennials coming through that we must connect with and engage. And I think in places like Asia and Africa, there is, again, opportunity for our reach to extend. The New World Order sounds very scary, actually, but look, we're all living through this, yes? We've got a pandemic. We know it's created a lot of havoc in the world. In some respects, globalization has stalled. There's a major shift in industry and business dynamics. And we've all heard about this VUCA world, and we've been talking about it for a while. And to some extent, it felt a little bit, you know, digitalization's coming, it's very volatile. And it still was a little bit, you know, softly, I'm sort of experiencing it, but it doesn't feel that big a change. Well, we've all, since March last year, experienced what uncertainty and volatility can actually mean. So that's speeded up some of that change. What does it mean for our profession? I think it's a bit of a mixed bag. On the one hand, we will, in some sectors, see businesses restructure and potentially downsize their communications function. Perhaps outsource, budgets will come under pressure. But then on the other hand, we've got this new phenomenon of hybrid working and remote working, where business leaders are seeing that how they once engaged with their employees and other stakeholders, their customers, has shifted. I read a fascinating McKinsey study the other day about B2B marketing, where it said that most industries actually really enjoy this digital world of buying. How interesting. What does that mean? Well, that's an opportunity, in my view, for communication professionals to really help business understand this shift, because good communication and engagement is going to be really even more important in a hybrid, in-person, remote, mixed type world. We're also seeing the new world order shift in terms of what chief executives and corporations are doing around societal shifts, and they're taking positions on environment, sustainability, diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's an opportunity for communication professionals to help them with those strategies in terms of their brand and positioning, but it also comes with reputation risk, as many of us will have experienced in the last 18 months. So we're needed. That's about us positioning ourselves to help this new world order, to bring our talents and skills to the table. So for IABC, how do we support the profession and our members to succeed in this new world order? You know, we need to help and evolve of new ways of doing what we do. You know, there might be new products, new solutions. We have to shift. I personally can tell you the story of, you know, the internet and websites and how that changed me as a marketer. You know, I grew up and worked early in my career where that wasn't there, right? Unless you were working in education, you'd probably not really experience the internet. Of course, our universities were using the internet really early. They were early adopters. But for the rest of us, this was a new skill set that we had to build, and we succeeded. And so too, I'm very confident, will our emerging professionals find ways, smarter ways to do things. I'd like for us to be there as an association to help that happen. Technology changes require higher value thinking. Let's just reflect on that. I think everybody in the world is sitting back and going, what does artificial intelligence and automation mean for me? How is that going to change my job, my business, my industry? You know, will AI replace basic communication skills? It may well. But the research will tell you that even if some of the tasks do get automated, do get undertaken by bots, there is always going to be a place for higher value thinking, for the IP of people like us who can help interpret trends and create actionable insights for businesses. So I'm more confident than some about what this will mean. I do recognise it's going to be a seismic shift in some industries. I think some parts of our skill set may well be replaced. So we will need to evolve others so that we continue to add value. Perhaps communications will be part of everyone's job in business, if it isn't already. Perhaps we'll see a more distributed model of communication support, either through consulting or in-house, but all opportunities if we grasp them. If we go to how communications is evolving, I think we've been experiencing this at least for a decade. The rise of social media, the role of visual digital communications, real-time communications exploding, a proliferation of channels and platforms. But again, interestingly, with COVID and this hybrid working world, there's also this new thing, which you may have read about. There was a great article on it in Catalyst on asynchronous communications. So on the one hand, we've got real time and how we as comms pros can help organisations navigate that. But then on the other, we've got this notion of I might be receiving an email from a teammate during the middle of the night, and then someone else is going to pick it up during their morning, and someone else might pick it up during the afternoon. That's a shift. And again, I think strategic communications advice will help. One of the things that is definitely shifting in terms of, the change in communication, I think, is that communication experts will go global. We've seen that in our own association. You can be anywhere, and people will choose to work from anywhere, and I think that's exciting. But not without its challenges, and the ability for comms pros to extend their skills. Perhaps it might have been a great wordsmith and crafter of messages and stories to a very digitally capable visual communicator with great skills in new technologies. And I can see it with people that I work with, this new generation of comms pros who are totally digitally adept and able to, in a way, they're like a walking agency on their own, and can produce videos, can visualize messages, as well as craft and deliver. Fantastic. Digitalization, we've spoken a lot about that. I think the real impact is that data and digitally enabled communications is even more important in this world, and that as an association and any of our organisations that we support with need data and insight that will inform decision making. So we're not excluded from that. We need to be able to use that, and perhaps we'll see different things emerge. Things like comms pros who are just great at data analytics, comms pros that know how to use gamification as an engagement tool, things like that. The final point on this mega trends is about the societal changes and the new normal, and we've spoken a little bit of some of those already. But we're going to see a shift in global values off the back of our pandemic experience, and also the pending climate crisis is going to fundamentally see this shift. Non-material values will gain importance. Derek's summary of this was really interesting. Health, look, and lifestyles become a new status symbol. Interesting. I'm intrigued to see how that will unfold. Mental health will gain relevancy for everyone. Our organisations seeing, the industry. Sue mentioned I'm in engineering. That's health and safety has always been front and centre for that industry, for anyone in construction. But mental health is a top 3 risk for most organisations, and that's going to require good comms and engagement to support our leaders, to help our workforce stay healthy and well. Global ecosystems, sustainability will become more important. Work from anywhere is going to impact local economies. What does that mean to human priorities and values? As a profession, we will continue to be sensitive to these changes and what it means for different audiences, cultures, language. Data will help us, but our human-centered insights and experience will help us more. Against that backdrop, what next for our profession? We've done this piece of research, which Peter will now take us through, to see what 200 of our colleagues around the world feel about this environment.
So as Danielle noted, this was part of our part of the work that the task force had done. And it came out of a question that, Derek as being part of the group and, it had oftentimes, sort of checking us on these things. What do we really know about, sort of the, perspective on the kind of the workforce climate, perspective of communications professionals, what are they seeing? How are they feeling right now? And so, what we had done a member survey earlier in the year, and there had been one done in 2018, one done in 2016, and a lot of that is more about how do you feel about IABC, or how do you feel about some of the programs. With this survey, it allowed us to get validate some things, but also just get some additional insights and perspective on what our members, and I believe there were some non-members that also took this, just what they're seeing in their profession and how they, what are the challenges, what are some opportunities. There's a couple questions of just how they're feeling. So the primary question is, as a business communicator, what is the biggest communication challenge you are struggling with right now? So that was sort of the kind of the primary question for the survey. And as Danielle noted, we had just under 200 responses. So the first thing is, I'll just mention a note about the demographics. A lot of the demographics kind of track with what we have seen, in terms of our membership demographics. So, about 30% men, 70% women. Canada and US, and the US made up the majority, over 50% of those that have responded. And as we know about our member demographics, we tend to be more mid-career, but we did have some early career respondents, as well as those that you would maybe consider as more seasoned in their career. So we felt like it was a pretty diverse sample, and also was representative of the membership, which is quite helpful. One of the other things that came out of this, and sort of the elephant in the room, is the impact of COVID. It's an interesting timing for us to be developing the strategic plan, because so much has changed over the last 16 months, and we've been living in a very different world. But there's a quote we have in here about embracing the opportunity to make a positive difference for others through both actions and words, and the power of communications, and how vitally important that has been over the last year and will continue to be. So we saw this as a trend that obviously people were speaking about and talking about within the survey results. And I should also note that we will have a report, a more substantive report on the results of this to be released later in the summer. So we definitely want to share this out. It's not something that's just for the task force, but I think there's some great information in there for our members and the broader community. So the major challenges facing communications professionals. So probably not a big surprise here, but one of the biggest, I think this was the highest percentage, is a distracted audience. So too much noise, clutter, fragmented, a lot of the complexities that have come along with the pandemic. People feeling overworked. In some cases, I think this is related to lack of resources, but feeling as though they're working 2 jobs or 3 jobs. Obviously, the speed of change, and as what Danielle had spoken about with some of the mega trends, but this digital transformation that we're going through in so many industries, and the need for the skill sets to evolve and meet new challenges. So. And then finally, the lack of resources. So these being the primary buckets of what we were seeing, and asking this question about what the challenges. And honestly, I don't know. I think this is probably some challenges that a lot of other professionals are also facing. But it was really interesting to see the insights of some of the specifics within the survey that people were noting, and the challenges that they were having, on a day-to-day basis. The digital world is here. It's certainly a theme throughout the plan, but top skills communication professionals want to master. So we had some questions around this. Everything digital, change management, and measurement. And measurement is interesting in that, what are we identifying to measure, and how are we doing it, and being able to develop those digital metrics that are going to be meaningful and impact what your work is and the work of the organization. But the digital piece, as Danielle was noting around AI and the use of bots, and all these things, what does that mean for the future communicator or communications professional? And so these are things that noted within the survey that people want to have more information on, they want more training on, they want more education on. So this was certainly loud and clear as a takeaway from the survey. And as I mentioned earlier, we also asked, what's the sort of the mood, what's the pulse, how are people feeling? And I think that there was as much as it's been a tough last few months, I mean, there was a sense of optimism. So people noting they're at the top of their game, trying to survive, happy where I am, ready for the next big challenge. We had another number of people noting that they are a trusted advisor to executive leaders in the C-suite. We also saw that ready to shape the future, and I think you see that in the purpose statement that we've crafted that we'll talk a little bit about in a minute. But we also got the sense that people are tired. People are there's a lot of fatigue, and that's certainly not surprising to probably all of you that are on today. That's that came through loud and clear. So I know that probably not only as a volunteer leader, but also in your own work, it's just been a year of fatigue. So we heard that definitely within the survey. The last question, I thought Derek had crafted this, and I thought it was really interesting. But what would we asked respondents, those that took the survey, what would you want to say to leaders about your discipline, about your profession? And we saw a lot of things around strategy and communication and change management. But I love that you need us more than ever. And that's something that I know it came up in some of these the comments, that now more than ever the communications are so vitally important to organizations, whether it's a for-profit, a nonprofit, a government agency. It is so critical. So it was really, and I guess I was also, struck by how many people actually responded to this. This was not a required question, but so many people feel passionate about what they do, and what is the voice of the profession. And so it was great to see all of this kind of come out. And as being relatively new to IABC, gives me a great sense of the passion of the folks that are working in this profession. So with that this was one piece that we used. It was a quick turnaround. I mean, we did this in early April, but I'm glad that we did it because it's an important, it's an important piece. And I'd like to say that in the future we'll do another one of these kinds of surveys, because I think it's an important input, as we look to the future. So and also Danielle, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to just share about the survey. I know if.
Well, I was going to, thanks, Peter. I mean, I think what's really interesting here, and you'll see later when we run through the strategy, when I think about 2025, what would success look like? Well, one of the things success really looks like for me is that more of the C-suite and more of the adjacent professions that comms pros work alongside, HR, IT, legal, risk, digital, understand the value of our discipline. I feel IABC's one of our big jobs here is to advocate for communications, professional communications, as an enabler of good business. So on the one hand, we absolutely want to arm our profession with the skills and development opportunities that make us all do our job better. Terrific, must do. But we can also advocate for the power of strategic communication. And so I'm excited by this, because to me, that's our big opportunity. Thanks, Peter. Let's talk Blue Ocean strategy very quickly.
All right, yes.
So this is, Bonnie Caver loves Blue Ocean strategy. She's a bit of a strategy wonk, is our Bonnie, but she's definitely onto something here. So the background to Blue Ocean is it talks about when you're competing, and this you'd recognise this perhaps for some of you, for those in the for-profit sector, you would recognise that you choose to compete, and it goes that you can compete in a red ocean, which is quite bloody, where you're competing on price, and there's a lot of similarity between you and your competitors. Or you can choose to compete in blue ocean, where there is less competition, where commoditization and price is less of a driver of success. And so this is just a useful tool for us to think about. Where is it crowded? If we think of IABC as an association compared to other associations, and we've got a suite of things that we offer, how do we compete? Where is the blue ocean possibilities for us that we could explore in our strategy? What you're looking at there is a graph that we mapped. We asked members of CORE, members of the IEB, so the Council of Regions, the International Executive Board, and then a cross-section of senior volunteer leaders around the network to look across the horizontal as ways that we compete with, and we didn't specify which competitor, we just said the competitors in this association. And so in some parts of the world, some people might have been going, well, I'm competing with the Australian Marketing Institute, or I'm competing with the Public Relations Institute of the United Kingdom, US, Canada. But we can compete on things like price, content, webinars, education, local events, annual conference, advocacy, standards of excellence, career advancement, certification, community, global, business. And the blue mark there is how we rated our competitor associations, and the orange is how we assessed ourselves. When we give this, when we launch the strategy to you all, we're going to give you a toolkit to help you adapt the strategy to your local plans. This will be one of the tools we'll give you because I think it's quite useful. And I think when you think about, I'm sitting here in Vancouver and I'm thinking about my immediate competitor set, and it might be a bit different to this, right? We're not all the same everywhere in the world. But what this says is price is red ocean. Price isn't the thing we want to be competing on. Content, is also quite close. We're not necessarily doing it as well as our competitors, was the assessment of this group. So we probably do want to improve content. Webinars, we all do them, but it's highly competitive, right? You can't differentiate as easily as you can if you look across the top. Local events, we see that as a real strength of the association. Around the world, and the annual conference, again, a strength. We can compete there. Advocacy is interesting, and it gets back to what I was talking about before. If we want to advocate for the value of communications, we need a public relations strategy, as we all know. That's what we would advise our clients and employers to do. Well, we're not doing it very well, but frankly, nor is our competitor group. So that's an opportunity. That is a blue ocean opportunity if we can do it well. What might that look like? We can talk more about that. And we want to co-develop that with you. Standards of excellence, our global standard, perhaps the least understood IP that we have, but one of the most valuable. We must relaunch that to the world. It is a strength. We can compete there. Let's do it. And then you can see across the top, certification, etc. Three things I wanted to call out because I think they are they're secret weapons in our arsenal. Community. We are an amazing community. We connect so well with each other. Our culture of generosity and networking and mentoring is next to none. And I've been in different associations during my career. And I think that is something that we know from our research people really value. Global. Now, we've had a really interesting discussion about this. The way I look at global, some people might go, well, I'm working for a local business. I don't do business globally. Global's not important to me. I think the other way of looking at that is actually international perspective, global best practice, learning from others is really what I see when I think about international. And if I am working on something, let's just take, if I think of ESG and the UN Global Compact, I look to Europe to see how they're doing it, communications in that space, because I think they do it really, really well. If I'm thinking about DE&I, I might look to Canada and the US to see examples of best practice. If people are thinking about how we're transitioning to a hybrid world of working, people should look to New Zealand and Australia to get early insights on what's going on there. So this blue ocean has informed our strategy, and I think it's a good thing for us to keep thinking about. If we only go out to market and seek to compete on price, content, webinars, education, we're missing some sweet spots that are very attractive to our audience. Thanks, Peter. Final, and I won't dwell on this, but we had a bit of fun thinking about who is our professional communicator that we're seeking to engage with. And we did, we've broken them down into people at different stages of their career. It lines up with the careers roadmap. And we're going to, Matt and I are going to relook at this based on the research that we did in April, but we used it based on desktop research that we'd undertaken. And Matt, as an academic, is very close to a lot of the student mid-career freelancer insights from his university work. So we're hoping to provide this to everybody across our volunteer leader cohort as a way of thinking about our marketing message, what we offer, and what's the experience. And we did a little bit of a persona profile. Here's Celia from Toronto, and her catchphrase is, "If only I had time," which I think we can all relate to that. So we've done a bit of work there, which I think is quite helpful. I hope you'll find it helpful. Ultimately, we'll map this back to what do we offer? What do we have that we offer to the audience? What's attractive to these different segments? If your assessment in your chapter is, we have a huge opportunity to go after freelancers, early career students, it's not going to be the same product offering that will appeal to Celia. So what is it? What's their mindset, and how can we position ourselves with an aspirational message and a marketing message that gets their attention? Thanks, Peter. So, having gone through all of that background, let's get to the strategy. So it's a 4-year plan. It's a roadmap. We will have a work plan to share with everyone for year 1. But what follows, we want to co-develop and co-create with you. Stronger Together is our ambition for the association. It's our response to the changes that are impacting our world and our profession. And what energises me, Peter, the board, Council of Regions, is it's in our hands to make this happen, because we lead IABC. So this strategy is ours, and it's not the international strategy. We want it to be the global network. This is our plan for the future. We've taken liberty, perhaps, with McKinsey, did an excellent paper on future-ready organisations, which I might get hold of and share in the chat before we finish today. It's a very useful read. They talk about 3 kind of ways of thinking about what it takes to be future-ready. It's who we are, how we will grow, how we will operate. If we could just go to who we are. So those of you who do a lot of work in sort of organisation development and work with leaders, you would be familiar with this trend away from heavy management control towards giving people more guidelines and guardrails so that you can empower your workforce. And we're seeking to do the same. I mean, what unites us as an association, why we're here as volunteer leaders, why we are members of the IABC, there might be some differences. Of course, we're all individuals, but we share a passion and a purpose and a why. What are we here to do? What do we care about? How do we want to go about it? And you'll see there the purpose statement, our why, which we did socialise with LI at the Leadership Institute, Virtual Leadership Institute, and we got some fantastic feedback. And this is a reworked version of that purpose statement. And if I can just read it out to you, it's a little small, but in the final pack, it'll be big. But, you know, we're here because we want to use the power of communication to deepen understanding, inspire action, and transform our world. So we want to build support. It's a call to action for the professional communication community. The power of communication, well, that's to highlight the impact of our profession that we've all seen, we've had over many decades, but perhaps never more starkly seen than in the last 16 months. We want to inspire action because it's not merely words, it's also action. Words on their own without action, as we know, won't transform our world. And why do we want to transform our world? Because we care about humanity and we want to tackle the challenges of our age. What will we do to do that? We're going to have professional communications. Our aspiration is to have professional communications at the heart of every organisation. Now, that might be professional communications working in a comms function. It might be professional communications as advised by our wonderful consulting community, but it might even be that we embed that capability more widely across organisations. Our how, we will advance the profession, create connection, which we've spoken about, our strong suit, and develop strategic communicators. I just wanted to call out culture for a minute because it's the culture that holds this why we are here together. And I just want to acknowledge something that I've found personally hugely important for my career. I joined IABC in 2009 when I moved city in Australia from Sydney to Melbourne. I had no connections in Melbourne, and new city, new industry, and it was IABC and that network that really helped me get connected in this town. And I picked up more of a comms responsibility in my role. I'd been running marketing at Ernst & Young, running marketing and business development teams in law firms. I'd always done comms, but I learned from my IABC community. And it is that, you know, volunteers are the metaphorical fuel of IABC, right? Just like real fuel, though, we need to replenish. And we need to reach and engage the next generation of volunteers. And so Stronger Together is as much about who we are today and how we want to grow. So that's a strong value for me personally to build our volunteer leader cohort across the world. Next slide, please. I spoke about the value chain, and there's a lot of detail on this, and let me just give you a quick sense of it. So all organisations exist to create value for somebody, right? The members of the organisation, the customers of the organisation, and they also have a strong drive to grow. So we're thinking about the stakeholders that we want to create value for in 4 ways. We have our members, we have our volunteers, we have the businesses, and that's the term that would cover for-profit, not-for-profit, government, etc. But we have the businesses, the organisations that we serve, and then we also want to contribute to the broader profession. We care about not just people who are members of IABC, but people who are doing this work wherever. So, you know, this is always important for us, I think, to keep in mind. This is as much as our why is important, who we are is also about who we want to connect with and impact. Thanks, Peter. Which brings us to the 6 pillars. And I'm just conscious of time. We want to create a good half hour for discussion. So I think we've got about another 10 to 15 on the plan, and then the remaining time we can have a chat. So we've done who we are. Now, how we will operate, and there's 3 pillars, and then how we will grow, 3 pillars. I'm going to ask Peter to talk to the 3 pillars of how we will operate, and then I'll talk to the how we will grow.
Great. So, and part of the reason why I took on the operate is because a lot of this will be work in terms of the execution, certainly working with volunteer leaders and volunteers, but, the staff working to execute a lot of this work. And as Danielle had remarked earlier, as part of the strategic plan, we'll also have what we're calling an operational plan to support these pillars. So, Stronger Together, not only being the title of the plan, but also one of the pillars. And this is, one piece is really around the governance and how globally, regionally, and on the chapter level that we are aligned and collaborating, and that, as Danielle had also said, that we're co-developing this plan as we go along. But another part of this is emphasizing the data management tools and having these digital tools to better support our members and the member experience. But also, as noted here, it's a shift from a member organization to really serving a broader community with a number of different benefits. So, I look at this as not only serving our members, but also serving people that are, as Danielle had said, that are maybe in adjacent professions. So in a sense, there's a bigger tent. And we also want to make sure that that we have the systems in place and we're able to grow with what we're identifying as kind of the future needs to have like an enriching member experience as part of the IABC. Another piece we've talked about is being what we're calling digitally transformed. So there's our platforms need to be more robust. There needs to be more there in terms of what we can offer with personalization, that there are things that we can do to more effectively connect and engage with our members. We are not at that point. So this is certainly something over the next 4 years will be done in phases. But in the first year, we are going to work towards this. And so we're, in a sense, setting up the scaffolding to make sure that we can put these kinds of changes in place. And then also the data-driven piece. In some ways, this speaks to having a data governance philosophy. So a way that we're collecting data, not only collecting data, but how we're using it and how it's informing decisions that we're making to serve members and to do outreach with our partners and members. So having the tools in place to again collect that and also create a personalized experience for our members. The data-driven, can mean a lot of different things, but I do think that one, we want to know more about our members, and we want to have services there that correspond to your attributes. So if you have a particular interest in something, that we're able to service that in some kind of way, whether it's through a networking opportunity or education. But that's going to be a big piece of what we need to work on. And there just needs to be more of a pipeline of that information that we're collecting. And again, having making sure that we have the tools to be able to fulfill that promise. So I'll pause here. I don't know if Danielle, there's something else that you wanted to remark on here in terms of the 3 pillars.
I thought I was doing quite well with my not being on mute when I'm talking, but darn, it got me again. I'm happy with that, Peter. I think there's obviously a lot of detail that sits underneath this, and I do recognise that we have, as you've acknowledged, this is staged. We're our digital platform is really disaggregated, some of it for very sensible and good reasons. Some of it, I don't know why we made decisions that we made at times in the past, but it is what it is. So what I want to do is really work with Peter and all of you to think about, well, what does a transformed digital platform look like for us? How do we make this really work for our people? But that experience is, and the ability as well around data. I mean, we have responsibilities to look after data, and that's quite important, and it is quite disaggregated at the moment. If I put on my governance hat, I get a bit nervous when I think, do we have really good controls in place around data across international regions and every chapter for discussion, and I think a really interesting opportunity for us.
Yeah, the only other thing that, and this is actually something that Derek had mentioned, just in I think it actually may have been in one of the mega trends, but, data really being the new oil, and it, just being so vital to our success. So if we're not able to not only collect, but have the, the analytics and, things that we can make actionable, it's just going to be a very tough future for us. So it's just something that we need to, an area that we need to grow in.
So how we will grow, 3 pillars there, as you can see. So delivering value, that gets back to the philosophy about we're here to add value. So it's a way of thinking about delivering on our purpose and deepening the impact of the profession. Just to give you just a couple of thoughts on what it could be. At Council of Regions this year, we've been talking a bit about an experience mindset, and we talk about IABC, and I think this is right. We're not a transactional organisation. We're relationship based, and that's when we're at our very best. That's when creating connections becomes a really powerful benefit for people who are members and volunteer leaders. So that really means when we think about delivering value, it can't be transactional in nature. We've got to think about the experience that we're creating. And, I think that we can also identify great value that's happening across the international community. I follow most every chapter on social media, and I know there's some incredible innovation taking place around our world. So what I'd like to see is for us to identify those pockets of brilliance. So you might have watched the revenue and reputation hacks session during this Dare to Lead. They were just 6 ideas, great ideas that, so I'd love us to identify more of those and scale and connect different parts of our network to see if there is a new service idea. Let's experiment and see how it goes, and learn from that and have that agile mindset about value. The second pillar, championing our profession, we've spoken about this already. I am setting up a board committee called Public Relations and Advocacy, and it will have representatives from Trends Watch, GCCC, and Diversity, Equity and Inclusion. And I'm looking forward to having conversations with you all about how we can work together to really have a PR and advocacy program. Start with small steps, but what is IABC's position on certain things, and how can we work with our regions and chapters to give you that to take to market? As an example, when I think about, let's just say we released some thought leadership through Trends Watch, where we co-developed it with our experts on best practice ESG communications. And everyone goes, that's fantastic. Let's issue that. And let's get our people on podiums in their cities to talk about IABC's insights. you don't need my name on a media release or me on a podium in Vancouver to do that. You need your region chair or chapter president, because it's your community. So I would like to get that material to you so that you can leverage it and build your brand locally and advocate locally. And we can do international as well, but I very much see it as co-developed, co-created and delivered on the ground. Advance my career. We spoke about some of the best kept secrets we have. Let's bring them to the fore, because it's really world-class framework. And if I was the head of an HR function with a large communication function, I'd want this insight and information because no one else has it. Thanks, Peter. Let's move to questions on Menti and then have time for chat.
Yeah, so the idea here is just to, I know this is a lot of information, so, but if we can just get a couple words from everyone, and I think this also is a helpful artifact for us, it's something that, we will save and kind of look back on. So I do have a Menti poll here, and hopefully everyone can see the Menti link at the top with the number, but if hopefully everyone's used Menti before, but you go to menti.com, put in the code, and if you could put in a few words, sometimes if you have your smartphone handy, do it that way. But just in 1 or 2 words, what from the strategic plan resonates with you most? Future ready, co-creation, alignment, clarity, hopeful, value, collaboration, moving forward, all great words. Awesome, I can see that. The pillars. All right, I'll just give about 30 more seconds. So, but thank you so much. Great. Out of storage. So the next question that we're going to ask here, thanks so much everyone for putting in some of those, and we'll save this word cloud, so thank you. How strongly do you agree or support each pillar? Again, it's kind of a tough question to ask, but we just wanted to kind of get a pulse check on things that you're seeing, things that might again kind of stand out, or maybe you don't feel like it's something that you feel strongly about. So again, with a Menti question, how strongly do you agree or support each pillar? And you should, if you go on to Menti again, you should be able to, there should be a slider there where you can, I believe it's a Likert of 1 through 5. So we have stronger together, digitally transformed, data-driven, which is part of the operate, and then delivering value, championing our profession, advancing my career.
I really like this, Peter. I need to get you to teach me how to do this. This looks good. I've got Menti, but I've never made it look as fun. It's one of my digital skills to be developed, I can tell.
Yeah.
How are people drawing on this?
Yeah, where's the red coming from? That's clever.
I don't know. It's not me.
You've been digitally hacked, Peter.
I have been, yes. Oh, at least it's scribbles. All right, so we have, I think, about half folks have, okay. Well, this is great. I mean, oh, we've got a love symbol.
Will, put the pen down.
I
I feel like there's only one person
wish.
who would write that.
Wish. I submitted.
Oh, great. Again, yeah, we'll save this, and thanks so much for. Looks like we've got a couple more coming in here, but this is really helpful. All right. So next, well, we still have some scribbles up here. It was just a kind of.
We're going to have I Heart Will on every slide from now on, particularly.
If that could be the strategy, that would be fantastic.
Apparently, it's our new brand for CWR is I Love Will.
So look, just a quick reminder of dates. So AGM and then July. So we'll be back in touch. In terms of next steps, and then we'll go to questions. So just a final piece of context, I guess, we've had a tough couple of years, as we know, as an association, and there is no doubt that whilst we've never been more connected, we've also got some of the elements of our business model under threat, membership decline, some of the income from some of the things like World Conference, just not the same in a virtual world. So that's a challenge, and but I believe that it is the challenge that we are up for, and we've got a great base of volunteer leaders who are also good with change, and I'm really encouraged by that. At the Leadership Institute, I think it was Catherine Ducharme, Will and Sue might remind me of, but I'm sure in her great presentation on the fluency of leadership, she did a quick survey on how people felt about change, and it was done in 2 sessions, Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, and we shared that, and I might get that in the toolkit that goes out. It essentially showed that our volunteer leaders are pretty good change agents and pretty flexible when it comes to change and transformation, which is great because this is a transformation. So, I'm encouraged by that. We will be obviously releasing the full strategy to our volunteer leaders and members after the annual general meeting. Peter's also mentioned this companion piece of thought leadership, which is to contribute to the discussion about the transformation of the profession. And so we'll take the macro, the research, some commentary, and we'll publish that and share that with through the broader community through Catalyst. I'm going to be asking the IAB to make themselves available to our volunteer leader community to present on the strategy, if you would like us to come to a planning session with your chapter or region, we will be more than happy to do so. And I'm asking them to really spend more time. We've been busy working on the IABC. We've got Smith Mucklen and Peter now. They've got their work cut out for them, but they are the professionals in this space. So I would like to see the board spend more time helping us with the strategy and working with our leaders to execute, co-develop where we need to. Thank you for this opportunity to speak, and we've got some other sessions coming up, we will be more than happy to come back. Just let us know.
Yeah.
Launch strategy to IABC members post AGM I've mentioned. This year, in late July, I'm going to, with Peter, ask all the chairs of the international committees and task forces to come together with we have a liaison from IAB that supports Trends Watch, DE and I, etc. I'm going to bring them all together with staff and talk about the strategy, because I want international to respond to this strategy in their work plan for the year ahead. We have a propensity to bite off more than we can chew. I want us to make choices that really will add value year one. We've got to stabilise the association. We've got to, as the world opens up, we have an opportunity to bring back some of the members we may have lost during the pandemic. Let's get membership numbers back up, because I know we've got a lot to offer. We perhaps need to refine some of our marketing messages, but I'm seeing some encouraging signs of trends in the right direction in terms of retention of members and attraction. What more can we do?
Yeah.
Create a year-round content calendar. Let's talk about these issues. Let's have this inform I will have monthly leaders chats. Everyone's invited. Peter's got a great podcast. We've got a great platform in Catalyst. Trends Watch, I can tell you the incoming Trends Watch is an amazing group of people. Let's look to them to help us. The toolkit we're already onto, but the most exciting thing is it's ahead of us. So I may not be here in 2025, but I will be. Won't be the chair, but I'll be really working so hard with you all in our leadership this year to really set us up for success. Thanks for your time. Over to you, Sue, to facilitate chat questions, and maybe we take the slides off the screen and we can see each other.
Thank you, Danielle and Peter, for that. I know that you've given the whole group a lot to think about. I personally am excited for where we're going. My favorite slide is the blue ocean slide, not gonna lie. Maybe it's because I participated in the poll, I'm not sure, but I just love where it shows the differentiation between what we offer and what competitors offer, and really, gives us a way to perhaps focus on those areas where we have those unique strengths and let go of some things that we've been, pushing a boulder up a hill about, and just let the world take it over because they do it better. So loving that. I think it's been a very interesting sort of collection of facts and data and some really hard thinking around what is it that IABC wants to be in the future, and how are we going to get there. So kudos to you, Danielle and Bonnie, for your leadership in this, and for Peter for your leadership in this, and sort of really pushing this forward. I've babbled enough. I'm going to see if people have questions. Bart, and then Amanda.
Hello, Danielle, thank you for being here, and hello, Peter. Chicago, I've been to Chicago, love Chicago. I'd love to come back sometime soon. Australia, it is definitely on my top 3 lists. So maybe we'll have an Australian beer when I come visit there.
That would be nice.
Yeah. So love the Blue Ocean strategy as well. And what resonated with me in particular, I'm on the board with CWR and focusing on professional development. And the championing our profession and advancing the career connection to business categories sort of made me think about the certification lens and the marketability of our profession. And I know that Canada is leading the way in certification, and we have a high level of SCMPs and CMPs. I myself am CMP and SCMP. What I saw, I know that this is a high level strategic plan, but thinking in terms of how it's actually going to be operationalized, I think certification is the gateway, not necessarily to more members, but the best members, the most qualified communicators globally. So it may not mean more, but it may mean the best of the bunch. What may help us get there is connecting the proposition of that to business. Why IABC certified members are the top gun globally, and what that makes a difference. There's an institute in Canada called the Institute of Canadian Advertising. People also spend a significant amount of time to be certified as advertising agency practitioners. And one of the things they do is they market the value of that entire process that people undertake. That's a 2-year certification. And they market it to human resources professionals and to agencies worldwide, so that people understand that these are the best of the best. And right now, I think we're not at a critical mass in the certification arena, but it is one of our strongest cards. And marketing awareness and understanding of that to the right people globally will certainly help connect us to business and move that value proposition through the value chain. So that's just sort of my selfish thoughts on that. But I love the plan, and I'm very excited about the future for IABC. So thank you for your time today.
Thanks very much, Bart. And Bart, can you send me a link to that, the Institute of Canadian Advertising and that certification? I'll pass that on to Brad Whitworth and Sia Papagiorgio, who they have got a very interesting piece of research that they're going to release shortly on certification. But I share your perspective, Bart. I think having got accreditation for CMP and SCMP shortly around the corner, we really need to maximize that. And I love your suggestion. Market it to HR professionals in the industry. It's good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll be happy to send that to you.
Great. Amanda.
Yeah, I'll just echo kind of what everybody else is saying. I really loved the Blue Ocean strategy, and I think we're getting a little bit deeper into some of the values pieces around, stronger together, and the other one, I can't remember what it is right now. But I think those are things that are really galvanizing for us, and I think are really speaking to some of the challenges that we've overcome in the last year or so, which has been a challenging year, 16 months or more. Arguably actually the last few years with IABC and the disruption that we've experienced. And our chapter leaders and our region leaders, particularly in the Canada West region, they've been doing a lot of heavy lifting through all of that, and working really hard to maintain membership and maintain connection, and also staying really connected to what's going on internationally. And, at times, really trying to put on a good face despite, some of the challenges that we're facing. So I would maybe make a comment just around that group as a pretty significant audience group, because I'm hearing from some connections that I have outside of the chapter leadership at this point that they're feeling this fatigue. They're not feeling like they're totally engaged with the organization, and those people are really strong advocates and marketers for membership. So I just sort of add that as an audience that I think we should pay particular attention to, and probably that, and that goes more up to the international level. The other piece I'd also just sort of comment on and recommend, and maybe Peter, this is a little bit more for you, and what I really love in the Stronger Together piece is that alignment, like chapter to region to international. And there's a lot of, in my own experience as a chapter leader, we want to be able to have dialogue and provide feedback and make those international programs or things like that work for our chapters. So, how can we do more of that? How can we help you? How can we talk more? How can we participate in that process so that we can make all of this stuff really meaningful for our members, and ultimately, drive increased engagement, increased followership, and overall membership. I'm off my soapbox now, sorry.
Okay. No, it's very, those are great comments, so thank you. In talking with Danielle and Bonnie and other members of the IAB, I know that that has been a challenge. I'd like for all of our efforts to be complementary. So how do we, and I think before we started the session, Sue was talking about, just the great things that chapters are doing and how we can cross-pollinate. And so I guess as a sort of the international piece or headquarters, like how can we help facilitate that? And also, I'm sure there are best practices that are happening or great things that are happening on the chapter level that we could also adopt, on the international level. So you're absolutely right, Amanda, as much as we can do on that front. And so I think that's a challenge for us, but it's such a great opportunity as an association.
Amanda, the fatigue and languishing piece, sorry, Sue, I acknowledge that. I think that is something that we have to actually think a bit more deeply about how we do that. I mean, it's good to say thank you, but we actually need to help people, right, to get through this. I don't know, that new word, language, it's not a new word, but it's the word, isn't it? The word of the year, languishing. That's how people are feeling. And we're addressing it in my own organisation. I've got to find, this has to be some kind of reset, I suspect. Let's keep talking about it though, because you know, on one level, it's an amazing opportunity to lead through change like this. Like, it is actually, this is once in a generation shift in our world. But when you're tired, it's hard to go, oh yes, I'm up for that again. So yeah, and I also acknowledge your point about heavy lifting. We need to really focus on that volunteer experience and take as much of the burden of the lift away and let you use the inspiration of the lift. So clean up the back end, get you the right support, the things that I'm never in my happy place when I'm doing certain tasks. I think we all know that as comms professionals. So don't make me do those tasks. If you can give me the things that are my happy place, I'll go do that well, but please don't make me feel burdened. And I'm looking at you, Peter, please don't make me feel burdened by financial systems and processes. If you can look after that, we'll look after this.
I just want to offer, it just struck me, Canada West region in the last year or so, thanks to Wendy's leadership, set up some communities of practice where all of the membership directors would get together once a month, and all of the finance directors and all of the PD directors across the region. Could we not set something up like that globally? Because when we are able to speak to people, I think that that's when the magic happens. And it can't just be the one-way directional, here's our latest, you know, newsletter or whatever. It's that dialogue that brings the richness. And so I would love for there to be a global membership portfolio, you know, community of practice, and a global, you know, finance director community of practice. And anybody who wants to come and join can join and just brainstorm and talk. I think that would really be amazing, because as you know, chair of the Canada West region, I will be a member of CORE, which is great. And I've loved being on the LI pack with you, Danielle, because we get to talk to people around the world about things. I think this could really be an awesome opportunity to, as Wendy says, put the I in international. So
love that suggestion.
Love that idea. Yeah.
Great. More questions? Anyone? Just, I don't know if I can see everybody. Speak up if you have a question for Danielle or Peter.
There was,
On the chat.
it looks like Jonathan has a question.
Good.
Oh,
Jonathan, go.
or do you want me to read it, Jonathan?
For the people joining an IABC board for the first time, words of advice. Sorry, no mic, that's okay. Sorry, words of advice. I think that, one, make sure you get a handover. So I'll tell you a story. When I first joined the IEB, I became the IEB liaison for the Gold Quill program. I had no idea what that meant. And they were always meeting in the middle of the night. And so I was always sort of emailing a couple of them saying, do you need me to do anything? And so I was like, no one said to me, here's what your expectations are. Here's what we want you to do as IAB liaison. And by the way, here's the person who did it last year. Have a chat to them and they can fill you in. Seems so simple, right? But I think with joining a board, we have to think about, as the incumbent board and the incoming board, have we handed over and handed off as best as we can? Because I think things slip through the cracks when people are busy. I think Leaders Centre, there's a lot of useful tools there. reach out and ask questions. And I guess it depends on when the board that you're joining. Some boards like the IAB is more a governance board, although we've been well and truly in the weeds for the last couple of years, but I'm hoping we can get back up to strategy and governance. Other boards are more working boards. And so that to some extent is an easier fit because we're all used to doing our jobs. For me, Derek Rosdeba, every board meeting says, now, Danielle, let's just get back up to strategy. And so I've written myself little notes. Stop getting in the weeds. That's my advice, because it's so easy, right? You go into solution mode, but actually, you know, I think we've got to take that helicopter view wherever we are and just remind ourselves what's the goal, what are the major steps we're going to take to get there, focus on those, ignore the distraction. I don't know whether that answered the question, Jonathan. I feel like you probably would be better able to answer than me, but I hope that helps.
I think it's good advice. And I think as well, some of the learnings we had from some of the sessions today and yesterday was that as boards, we really do need to spend more time on that higher level thinking and less time on, you know, the monthly program update, which frankly gets filed in a paper report anyway. I think that, you know, tackling the challenges facing chapters, you know, in a systematic way, like the July, and I'm making this up because we don't meet in July, but the July CWR meeting should be focused on strategies for improving membership. And maybe the August CWR meeting is focused on strategies to improve revenues because we haven't been able to have in-person PDs which generate money. Do you know what I'm saying? So instead of following, you know, an agenda that says, let's everybody talk about what we've been doing, why we should shift it maybe. And maybe we should spend more time as a region thinking about these higher level strategy things that then chapters can take and do at their level for them, whatever fits their world. And if we could see that happen at international and at region and at the chapters, then at each stage, people can customize for whatever their circumstance is. You know, if you're a growing chapter or you're a shrinking chapter, or you're like Edmonton, who has, you know, 22 directors and, you know, trying to find volunteer roles for everybody because you got so many volunteers. Great problem to have, by the way. You know, I think that that's where we can learn and really take on the bigger picture issues and really steer this ship instead of just go along for the ride.
Yeah, agreed. You know, they say the most sustainable competitive advantage that any organization can have is its leaders. Right? Great leaders can do great things. A great process never did very much except make things a bit easier, which isn't bad, right? That's all good. But having that vision and I think also, you know, being prepared to experiment a bit. Like, I think it's okay to fail. That's fine. How would you know unless you gave it had a go? What I think, if I reflect back on things in my career, and there've been lots of failures as well as some successes, was that I went all out on a bet and I hadn't actually tested it, you know? So we Australians are very mean. There's no Kiwis on the call. Let me just be cheeky. But we would say, we think you should market test that in a small, safe market. Try New Zealand. But, you know, but we could do more of that, right? If the region board has an idea and says this could be a really interesting member attraction strategy, maybe just ask one chapter with your support to have a go at it and see how it goes, rather than everyone off, because it mightn't work, or it might be a raging success, or it might be a partial success, and we'll learn something, and then we decide to scale, we're going to be more successful.
Yeah, great points. There's some comments in the chat just about, you know, embracing this notion of trying things out. and piloting things, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, especially if we provide a safe place to land, a soft place to land for people. If you try something and it doesn't work, you know, I think sometimes we have really high expectations of programs. You go to World Conference and you want to be wowed at every session. And sometimes we can be critical of each other. And I think that if we just give ourselves a soft place to land to say, you know what, we tried it, didn't work, but that's okay. We learned something from it. I feel like we can be more innovative if we do that.
Roland.
I have a question. I've been a member for a while now, and I've had the good fortune of seeing IABC's financial standings go up and down, up and down, up and down over the last several years. And from last I heard, we were on an upward trajectory with the way things were doing, with how the office was managed and how we have a new management team. We were quite disappointed in the way things were done a few years ago, prior to the way things are done now. Would you be able to share some insight as to how things are going now and how you see things going with the next little while, and speak to that?
Sure. I'll start, Peter, I'll hand over to you. So the association management model, if we think about 2020 calendar year, kicked in 1 July. So we've had 6 months of last year and nearly 6 months of this year. And I'm feeling much more comfortable that we've got better practices in place, but it's not perfect yet by any means, Roland. And the financial challenges we face are, you know, we've lost a lot of members, and that impacts all of us, international region chapter. And, you know, we pulled the proverbial out of the hat last year with the virtual World Conference, and that did well. And we'll have a good World Conference this year, but it's unlikely to make the same sort of income that the in-person in Vancouver did. So that does put us under financial pressure. There's no doubt about it. And you know, it's the biggest issue I think we have to face in the short term, is to get that stability. And I've been saying to a few people, you know, it's a big do rather than a big spend. It's making good choices. It's being realistic and financially conservative would be my view. But we're not through the woods yet. But I feel that we will get there. But it's not a walk in the park. We could all have done without the pandemic. But there were pre-existing issues, as you've alluded to, Roland. We had COVID, but we had some issues before then. So acknowledge that, and let's move on sensibly and carefully to get us to a better space. Peter, do you want to comment?
No, I mean, I think you answered quite well, but I mean, one of the things that, you know, since I've joined the team is just really just stabilizing things and reevaluating processes and putting new processes in place. You know, Smith Buckland, you know, we're going to see and support IABC, and we're going to, you know, we're completely committed to, you know, putting on another virtual conference and, you know, putting new programs in place as we move along. But as Danielle said, as we've had some challenges, but I am very, very optimistic about as we move through the year, and we've seen really good membership numbers over the last few months. Kind of one data point that made me smile today is that you know, we looked at May, and you know, our new member number for May was better than 2019, and it was better than 2018. So that, to me, you know, we had I think a successful gold quill. You know, we're just seeing great engagement. So I just think that there's a lot of great things on the horizon. So I don't know, you know, Roland, if there's anything else you wanted to.
No, that was. If anyone else has any other questions on that, I'm happy with that.
Wendy, the affinity program. Look, it wasn't our finest hour. I'll be honest. I think it should not have gone beyond the United States because it wasn't relevant beyond the United States. It was, I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh, and I forgive me, but you know, they arrive in your inbox just as someone said in Australia, oh, they've just put the border up, you can't leave your state. And you're like, really? Okay, well, that's very helpful. I can't travel. Don't tell me there's a special deal for me when I can't even leave my home state. So look, I'll let Peter comment in more detail, but my view is I was clear that it wasn't spam, but I think it could have been framed more effectively and more effectively targeted, because for anyone outside of the US, it would have been confusing. Yeah. And you're right, we've just got to do better at that stuff.
Yeah, admittedly, it was a learning for us. We've apologized to folks that were confused by it. We know that if anything, it just needs to be reframed, but certainly a point of confusion for those that can't take advantage of that benefit. Yes, we will get better.
And I'm really hoping, Peter, that the new IT system will allow you to better target your messages to audiences. I mean, when you look at the whole membership pie, the United States is no longer the biggest slice, right? So that was a very targeted message to a portion of the membership. And I recognize that the IT system's been sort of holding us back, but I actually quite love the idea of being able to give targeted messages to sections of the membership. You know, if we could do something for just Canadians, or we could do something for Americans, I think that would be a really great innovation as part of the IT system. So look forward to that.
Yeah. No, I think that, there's a lot more that we can do in terms of tracking member attributes. And when I say attributes, things that, if you opt in to sort of identify about yourself, what industry you may be in, if you're in healthcare, just things that we can better, target, in terms of, benefits and services that might be available and of interest to you, because not everything's one size fits all, right? Great points.
I'm just conscious of the time here, folks. We're past 5 o'clock Mountain Time. So I'm just conscious that we were meant to wrap up around 5. But I don't want to cut off conversation. So I'm not sure how everyone feels about that. We may have to wrap this up, but it's been so wonderful to have, our top leaders right here with us and able to speak directly to things that, messages don't always percolate. So yeah, I want to thank you for that. I think we're starting to see some folks have to sign off because of the time, but I just want to thank you both so very, very much for being here today, to sharing your thoughts and the strategic plan directly with our leaders, especially as they enter their board years. For most of them, some of them are returning, of course, but many are new. And it's just been really great for us to get a better sense of what the organization is looking at overall. So I just want to thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you, Sue. Thanks, Will. Thank you, Wendy, and everybody else. It's been really great fun. And, Peter and I both have email addresses. Just don't hesitate to contact. Any ideas, suggestions, always gratefully received. Enjoy the rest of have a nice weekend, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone.
For everyone else, we just have some final goodbyes before we all log off. Maybe if you can put on your screens, we can also maybe get a few screenshots as we say goodbye. And Sue, if you want to take it from here, that would be great.
Sure.
Or, yeah.
Just waiting for everyone to put their screen on. We'll take a screenshot of the happy game. There we go. Thank you so much. So just some housekeeping things. Firstly, to remind people of the Canada West Conference that will be held in October 25 to 27. Watch for all the exciting news to come out about that. It will be virtual again. We took that decision earlier this year, not knowing whether people would be able to travel, and And as Danielle's pointed out, she's already been in lockdown, out of lockdown, back in lockdown, out of lockdown. So we felt the safest course was to go virtual with that. But I think there's going to be some really exciting components, including the idea that your local chapter will host, where appropriate, chapter social events to compensate for the lack of everyone getting together. So look for that. I do want to say a huge thank you to the Dare to Lead organizing committee, who have done a stellar job these past 2 days pulling this together. So Wendy Thatcher, Gabrielle Hartman, Asha Patel, Rebecca Isbister, and Celine Copeland, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. This has been a truly amazing conference, and you guys have hit it out of the park. So thank you so much for that. I want to thank Will Tigley, as this is his last Dare to Lead as our Canada West chair. Thank you for your leadership, Will, over the past year and a half, and all the wonderful guidance you have given us. I look forward to tapping into it as you enter the past chair role. So you're not going anywhere, but I just wanted to acknowledge your time as the Canada West chair. It's a big job, and I appreciate all that you've done, and I've learned a lot already. So I thank you for that. I also want to thank all of the current presidents who are now stepping into their past president role at the chapter level. Thank you for your leadership and your dedication to your local chapter, and helping to steer the ship as we move forward. And I know that you will continue to be, great resources for the new incoming chapter presidents who are now stepping into some very big shoes. And for everyone else who's joining their chapter board this year or continuing in their role on their board, a huge thank you for everything that you do to keep IABC alive and well and kicking ass, frankly, in Canada here. We can't do this without all of you. And it starts with the chapter. It starts with that home touch point, and it goes from there. So you are rocking it, and I hope that you found Dare to Lead to be a great orientation to your board year ahead. So good luck to all the incoming directors, all the continuing directors, and thank you all so very, very much for your time and your energy that you put into your boards. So thank you for that. We ask you to continue to look for our monthly Dare to Lead, sort of monthly, I don't want to commit, Wendy, monthly Dare to Lead sessions that will be coming up again in the fall. You can check in with those. They'll be virtual, but usually a topic of the month. I know that Leadership Institute has been doing that as well. So I know there's a hiatus for the summer, but hopefully that will continue as well in the fall. Great way to connect with people. Hope you're able to pursue the idea of that global community of practice. And just looking forward to seeing you all hopefully next year in person. That would be a fabulous thing. But in the meantime, I know we'll be connecting with you. Reach out at any time to anybody on the CWR board or other chapter boards now that you've had a chance to meet. And of course, Danielle and Peter are available to you as well if you need to connect at that level. And our very own CWR representative on IAB, Jonathan Tremblay, is also a very good resource for you if you need. So thank you so much for being here today and for contributing to the community that we call communications.
And Sue, thank you so much for the kind words. Yes, it is my last opportunity as the chair to say anything. But I do want to also recognize and thank you, Catherine Ducharme, who came back to the executive board and helped us out throughout this year. And the guidance that Jonathan provided us as well during that. We have such a fantastic group of leaders, and I'm going to acknowledge this again in a couple of weeks during the AGM, but everything you guys do has been fantastic. And thank you, Catherine, for coming on board and helping guide both Sue and I during this year. We know that sometimes we get exhausted from IABC in our leadership roles, but we always are so thankful and grateful when leaders come back and support us when we need them. And that's exactly what you did, Catherine. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, everybody. Wendy, any last words? That's a wrap. Well done. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy your weekend.
Weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Go IABC.
See ya. Have a
Yay.
great weekend.